What do writers look like? Do they look like me? Do they look like doctors, lawyers, judges, rabbis? Rabbis. My name is Vin Dacquino, and today's guest is an author, a very good author, and also a rabbi. Please meet Rabbi Kogan.
How are you doing?
A
Thank
pleasure.
you so much for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here. Now, you came all the way in from New York. You took a long trip to get here, and can't wait to hear all of the good things you have to say. You've written a book. The book is called Fables from the Jewish Tradition. Tell me a little bit about you.
Okay, the first thing I can tell you is that I came a longer trip, actually.
Okay.
I came all the way from South America.
Ah, wow.
I was born in Argentina,
Wow.
in Buenos Aires. And I came to America with my wife and my oldest daughter 15 years ago. I was a rabbi in the Dominican Republic for 2 years.
Wow.
And then I lived 8 years in Roanoke, Virginia. My 2 youngest children were born there. And 7 years ago, I made it to New York. And I'm a rabbi in a congregation in Queens, 400 families.
Wow. Now, how many children do you have?
I have 3 children.
3 children. Wow. And you're a rabbi in Queens.
Yes.
And how long have you been in Queens?
7 years.
7 years. That must be an experience.
You know, it is. It is more Spanish speaking in Queens than in Roanoke, Virginia. So that's
But not more than San Domingo.
that's true. Or Buenos Aires.
So your profession brought you here, and what brought you to writing?
So when you are a rabbi, you need to write. You know,
Yeah.
sooner or later you will end writing because you need to communicate with people. So first of all, you know, rabbis do a lot of writing. You know, now you do it by email, so you are in front of a computer. You need to write to people. You need to communicate with them. You need to ask them questions. I am more formal. I don't like just very. So even when I write an email, I start, you know, dear so and so, and I end with words of blessings. And then you need to write letters. You need to write letters to donors. You need to write letters to prospective members. You need to write thank you letters. And then you need to write messages to the congregation. And since English is not my first language, it doesn't come so easy, the writing. But you know, I do a message once a month, so I need to work on it.
Do you write in your own language first and then translate it, or do you write directly into English?
It's a very good question. When I came to America, my first, I would say, 6 months, I was writing in Spanish and then translating it into English. And it took a long time, and it didn't work well. Even though my English was
some things are not translatable.
No, not only that. I mean, you could translate it, but it was a lot of work. It was easier to write it in Spanish, but then it took a long time to write it into English. And I realized that I could not do that for a long time. So I started writing in English, and then I had someone to help me with my editing, and which I had actually a teacher in Roanoke, Virginia, who volunteered to help the rabbi.
Oh, wonderful.
So,
do you find the English language difficult?
I don't find it difficult to understand. My vocabulary, I think, is very good. The pronunciation I find it difficult.
Yes,
you have difficult. In English, you have, for the same vowels, you have different sounds. So that is really crazy to me. But
I know. It's funny.
And then you have some consonants that you don't pronounce. So it's.
I worked with some students in English as a second language, and that was their big complaint. They said, "Wait a minute. How could it be spelled exactly the same and be a different word?"
Yes.
And that's true. And in the English language, that's very common.
And you know, and my children and some of my congregants, they make fun of me, and we can live with that.
Yeah, that's right. Now, are your children writers?
I think they like to write. my daughter writes for, she's in college now, so she needs to write papers. And my son used to do comics when he was younger, and my youngest daughter, has a diary and she likes to write. I think they are writers, but I don't know if that's something that's going to get, they're going to be over with it or not.
So is their first language English?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, wow.
And they are fluent, no accent.
Yeah.
I'm a little jealous, what can I say?
It takes a while. It takes a long time. So now this book was a commitment on your part. It says things that you really believe in and want to say. What is that?
I mean, with this book, there is an interesting story because I wrote it first in Spanish.
Oh, okay.
And I wrote that book when I was in Dominican Republic. I had the time to do that. I was less demanding congregation in terms, related to the fact that it was a smaller congregation.
Right.
And I had time to sit down and do some research. So I wrote it in Spanish, but I never published it in Spanish.
Oh, wow.
So then someone liked the book and said, I would like to make it into, you should do it in English. You should find public in North America, in the USA. That's even before I thought about moving to America.
Wow.
So someone helped me translate it into English, and then I got a couple of people who look at the book, and we found it.
And they publish. So tell me about that process of changing it from Spanish to English. Now, you had this translator. Did you sit down and talk about the book first, or did you go right from the manuscript to translation?
I wrote it into Spanish, and then she was also my English teacher in the Dominican Republic.
Oh.
So I knew enough English to know if the book,
she was getting it.
Yes, yeah. the essence of the book. And she wrote the book and gave it back to me, and then I started working on her translation, on just doing the editing. And by the time the book was published, my English was better, and I was able to make some additions and changes, and even things that are not in the original in Spanish are in the final version in English.
Tell me about the time frame.
I would say that it took me probably 1 year to write the book.
In Spanish?
Yes, it's not the only thing rabbis do. I mean, I cannot say I'm...
It is in Santo Domingo, no.
No, not even in Santo Domingo. And and also it's not that you need to do research. This book is... the main idea of the book and what attracted me to write is that I always liked fables. Aesop fables, the
right.
animal fables. I liked them when I was a child. And then I realized by teaching Talmud and that many of the fables that are in the classical Greeks, they are in the Talmud also. And I asked myself, how is that the same motif? The fox and the grapes, for example, are in the Talmud and in Aesop. And what I was interested in going back to the context. How did the Greeks use the fables, and how did the rabbis use the fables? And these are 2,000 years old writings. So part of the book was tracing the fable to its origin and finding the background in the Talmud and the context in which each of the fables were written. I did a selection of 40 fables, 40, and then I did an introduction to the subject and became a book. And what is very unique is that I had a friend in the Dominican Republic, Marcelo Ferder, who illustrated each fable.
Wow.
So it became like a book that is both for adults in terms of research and also could be like a children or like a teenage book. My youngest daughter, she takes some of them when she goes to sleep, and she reads one chapter. They are very short. So you can read actually the fables by themselves, and you get each fable. And then, if you are more interested in the process, you can read the research in the back.
Wow. So it gives them. So the book is a series of lessons.
It's basically 40 fables, and each fable is a lesson in itself, but you need to do some, you need to go into the notes and understand what is the purpose of the fable. Let me give you an example, just very, very quickly.
Yes, please. You can even read a little piece if you like.
There is okay, let me just see if I can do
that'd be
a short one. Okay. It's called The Blind Man and the Torch. This is from the Babylonian Talmud. Once in the dark of night, I saw a blind man walking with a torch in his hand. I asked, "My son, what good is a torch to you?" So this is a blind man who is walking with a torch, and someone is saying, why are you using a torch? You are blind, you cannot see anyway.
See the light. Yeah.
He answered, "As long as I have the torch in my hand, people will see me and save me from pits, thorns, and briars." So this is a fable that appears in the Talmud, and it is. I use it first of all to study, because people ask the question, what is a blind person doing with a torch? With a
torch, right?
It is. I taught this fable, and it is interesting to, for example, to teach about people with disabilities. How much do you share about your disabilities? How much you want other people to know about your limitations?
Yeah.
In the sense that you carry a torch, you want people to see that you are blind, or that you are lame, or that you have a speech impediment, or you want to hide it. If you know, for example, that you are limited in some way, maybe it's an opportunity for people to help you.
Yeah, it's interesting. In Kiss the Candy Days Goodbye, this was my first novel, and it was a story of a 12-year-old boy who finds out he has diabetes. And when the doctor finally is able to diagnose him and say you have diabetes, and tell him that he's going to have injections and do this the rest of his life. And she said, "So you're going to be different from other people?" And he said, "I don't want to be different." And she said, "You don't have a choice. What you do have a choice with is what you do with that difference. And it's okay to be different, but you have to know how to live, be a special kind of normal." And in a way, I think that's what's happening here. You have to. It's what you see, and not necessarily what others see. And you have to judge yourself by who you are.
Let me give you an example of something that we talked before. I come to America. I realize sooner or later that I have an accent. Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody that listens to me will say, "Oh, this person speaks funny." They may not know he come from Israel. He's Jewish, but he has an accent. So what do I do with my accent? So I can take it as I need to get rid of this accent, and I can work hard. And between you and me, even if I work very hard, I won't be able to get rid of an accent.
Right.
It's something that comes with me. If you came to America when you're 3 years old, then you can get rid of an accent. But when you are 35, it's very, very difficult. So what I decided to do is just to put it out there. I have an accent. The first thing I just tell people, I know you are thinking I come from another country. You want to guess where I come from. And to tell people, this is not my first language. Maybe you can help me. Just if you don't understand, please let me know. Mm-hmm. If you see that I made a grammatical error in my writings, please check it and give it back to me. I'm going to correct it, and allows people the possibility for them also to see that you don't have to be flawless or to be perfect in order to make it in life.
Yep. I tell my students, I said, I want you to think, you're a bright child. If I take you and bring you to another country and you can't speak a word of that language, does that make you dumb? Does it make you ignorant? Are you still a bright boy or a bright girl? What do you have to do? And they said, well, we'd have to learn how to communicate. Exactly. And because you have an accent, you have a choice. You could say, you know what? people aren't going to understand me. They may even make fun of me, so I'm better off not talking.
You go.
That true? No, it's not true. You can't. No one's going to quiet you because you have an accent. You decided that you still have something to say. So between your book and all of the things that you have to say to your congregation, you are who you are, and you're not going to let a difference hold you down. And that's a very important life lesson.
This is one fable.
Yep.
It's one fable, and then you have others that will focus on a different.
Do you have a favorite?
Different areas. Do I have a favorite? It's. I will tell you, there is a fable here called A Man with the Two Wives.
Okay.
And it's a fable that Aesop brings, and also is in the Talmud, and it's about a man that has two wives, one young and one old. We don't have people here that married two wives, but in ancient times that was.
At least they won't admit to it.
Yeah, no. But in ancient times that was a very common practice.
Yep.
And the old wife was taking him, was plucking his dark hair, and the young wife was plucking his gray hair. She was embarrassed, and at the end the man went bald. So this is a very, very short story. So the Talmud uses it in a different context, but when I taught the story, I used it to teach why does a person have two wives, and and the answer is, especially a young and an old one, is that the person doesn't want to give up any choices in life. Usually, people who get two of something are people who cannot choose. Mm-hmm. When in life you cannot choose, when you cannot make a choice, you end being bold. You end with nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
And so one lesson that I think is important in life for me and for my congregants is that you are not going to get everything you want in life, and that you need to make choices. And each time you make a choice, you are going to end giving up something else, and that's okay.
Yep.
That is okay to give up in life.
One motto that I have always lived by, not always, I've come to understand it more. It's not having what you want that's important. It's wanting what you have. And understanding that you can wish for the world that you spend your whole life wishing. What you really have to do is appreciate what you already have. And that's important.
Yes, I mean, I like just to challenge it slightly, that you don't want someone to be a conformist. People can really aim higher and fight for some things, but eventually life is about choices. So
yeah. And if you're always fighting for more, then your whole life is a fight.
That's true.
You have to, at some point, you have to appreciate what you have.
I think you need, as you work on getting new things, you need to, hold dear what you achieve, what you are good at, and maybe, as you say, it's time for me just to relax. It is time to fight and to work hard, and it's time also to relax and maybe to write a book.
Yeah, that's right, to write a book. Now, does the book also explain the fables, or simply?
No, it does explain. Each book has a footnote, like a note,
right,
in which the fables are being explained in their context.
Good. Yeah.
And at the end, you have like 30 pages about fables in general and fables in the Jewish tradition.
Right.
I wanted to put the explanation at the beginning, like an introduction, and the publisher says, let the people first enjoy the fables.
Yeah.
They may not want to read the fables if you give them 30 pages of scholarly work.
Yeah.
And if they are interested, they can go. And I think it was a smart choice.
Good idea.
Yes.
So now, are you getting feedback on this?
Yes. First of all, it is a specific book. It has the graphics, but it is. You need to like fables, and you need to be interested in the Jewish tradition.
Yeah.
So people, who read the book are interested in the book. They ask me questions. I put together a curriculum about how to teach the book with the help of 2 other teachers. So I taught the book in my congregation. I taught the book to children, different ages, and it worked well, and people like it. People like it.
Yeah. Now, how long has the book been out?
I would say maybe 5 years.
Yeah.
Yes, 5 years, 4 years.
So it's getting. Now, do you use it in your? So you use it in your regular teachings?
Yes, I did an entire year on the book.
Wow.
I said, I told my congregants, you hire me, now you need to get 40 classes on this book. And they came, and it was a curriculum of an entire year. Each Saturday I took a different fable, and I unfolded it in 30 minutes.
Wow.
And I did some questions about, and I invited conversation. The same conversation that we had here about disability, for example, I had with my congregants. Some people say, I don't like people to know about my private life, or I don't like people, there are people who have some stories or some background or something that happened to them when they were young, and they carry that they hide it. And I think it's very heavy to go through life with such a weight. And part of that is, have your torch and put it there. Maybe someone will help you.
Yeah, sometimes people don't realize that writing is 2 kinds of therapies. It's therapy for the writer, and it's therapy for the reader. Because the writer gets a chance to kind of focus and say, what do I really need to say or to teach? And what do I want my reader to learn? So when I'm done with this book, what do you want me to say? What would you love to hear me say and walk away with?
I think that first I think it's a wonderful way to talk about the therapy, because it is, I am a psychologist from the University of Buenos Aires in my background, and I think that the book, the fables, some fables, not the 40 of them, have the power to change you.
Yes.
Have the power to touch and to say, this fable spoke to me and made me think about my own life. Because I think that the fables, the authors that wrote these fables, both in the Talmud and also the Greeks, the purpose of fables is to shake you, and to do it in a way that is going to overpass your defenses. Nobody wants to hear about, let's say, if I am arrogant, or if I am bossy or an angry person. So if someone wants me to change, it's going to, I already will put my defenses. I don't want to hear it. But if I hear about a fox that is angry, or about a lion that is arrogant,
So
then
make you like the third person.
Yes, then I laugh a little, and then eventually I say, maybe it's talking about me, and then I can. So I think that it has the potential to change both the writer and the reader.
So it's non-threatening.
It is not. Yeah, I think so. Yes, and and that's although I don't know if you know about Aesop. He wrote fables. He wanted to bypass the censorship, and the government found out, and they killed him actually.
Yeah, wow.
So it was a very dangerous profession, especially if the readers don't have a sense of humor. But hopefully they, but the truth is that we don't know about the people who killed him, but we know about him.
Right. Now, so you don't have to be Jewish to read this.
No. No.
This is really universal. It's about life.
And yes, and and you can learn about fables, and you can also learn about Judaism, and maybe be more intrigued about Judaism and about fables in general.
Yeah. Get you thinking about who you are, what you believe.
It's basically about character development.
Yeah. So now, have children received this well?
Yes, certainly my children.
Yeah.
Daddy
Now,
will like your book.
Are your children your critics?
They are. First of all, they read it, and I think that for little children it's difficult.
Yeah.
Little children, they like the illustrations. They are kind of funny, but I think you need to be like 11 or 12 years old to start appreciating the content.
How did you choose who would do? Did you choose who would do the illustrations, or did the publisher?
No. That was me in the Dominican Republic. They already came the book with illustrations. We had an artist, an Argentinian artist also in the Dominican Republic. I gave him the 40 fables, and I say, work on them. And he ended with 40. And the other thing about the illustrations is that in Jewish tradition, a text, like I'm sure in the Christian tradition also, you have a text, a sacred text, and then you have many layers of interpretation.
Yes.
And the illustration itself is a layer of interpretation.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
The way the illustrator read the fable and interpreted it in his drawing, then you get a new layer of interpretation. I didn't think about, there is a story about a man who is afraid of dogs, and he decides to run towards the dogs, which is also another lesson. You don't run away from the problems, you face the problems. And he wrote the guy who was afraid with glasses like an intellectual. And in my mind, I picture him like someone 2,000 years ago. And he said, this could be me sitting today about things that I am afraid of. And how do I do it?
Well, one thing we're not afraid of is reading this book. And I highly recommend that you do. These are not just lessons, they're life lessons. And I thank you so much for coming here today and sharing your life lessons with us.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure. The title of the book is Fables from the Jewish Tradition by Rabbi Manes Kogan. A pleasure. Thank you
so
for
much.
joining us. Tune in for other authors. In the meantime, let's thank this one for being